Hello and welcome to the shop. Tonight I've got a beautiful piece of black palm sent to me by Jim Eller. Now I'm going to make this up to a Gatsby, a chrome and gunmetal Gatsby kit. And I really think it's going to look nice because the wood is very dark, so the darker gunmetal aspect is going to look great with it. But then there's the chrome that's just going to like stand out. And I think it's really going to pop. The pin is really going to pop. I have turned black palm before, and I'll tell you right now, it can be a little tricky. It's like turning a bundle of straws. That's the best way I can describe it. So hang around and let's see what we can do with this gorgeous piece of wood. Here's a little better view of the kit I'll be using. It's the chrome and gunmetal Gatsby kit from Penn State. Right here is your part number. It's going to be a great kit for this because I really think it's going to accent this blank. I'm going to go ahead now and just mark off a section of the overall blank that I want to cut off to make this pin. I've chucked up this piece of black palm, and one thing to think about with black palm, you don't want to go, a lot of times I'll just start using my roughing gouge and I'll go from end to end on the blank. You don't want to do a lot of that with black palm. You want to kind of start in the center and cut out, because as you cut from ends, you're going to lift up some of these grains or some of these fibers in the wood and start tearing them out. But I found if I come in from the center and cut out either direction, I get a nicer cut. I'm going to start off using my roughing gouge and do just that. And if things cut nicely and things go well, I'll use the roughing gouge for the whole blank. If I start to have any issue whatsoever, I probably will park the roughing gouge and grab the skew. So let's see what happens. I'm having pretty good luck with my roughing gouge, so I think I'm just going to continue on just slowly working from the center out. There's no major tear out. You saw in the beginning there I pulled a piece up and held it up for you where it's sort of splintered. There's a lot of depth in this wood between the grain, and I think I mentioned it earlier. It's just like turning a handful of straws, and you don't want to go fast. You want to take your time with this. This is unstabilized, so I got to be even more careful as I turn it. Still looking pretty good, turning nice and slow. Let me show you something. This is what you get off of this black palm as you turn it. There are no shavings really, it's just these tiny little chips. And my tool, I sharpened it right before I started. It is razor sharp, but this is what's coming off of this blank. I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to even touch my tool up, because one thing I'm concerned about, being palm, I don't know what all is in these little areas, these little gaps in between the palm. I mean, if it's sucking up stuff from the dirt, maybe it's bringing minerals in or whatever, and it really feels like I'm laboring with my tool. And you can see some rough cuts right there. I have a choice. I can either sharpen this tool, which, yep, it does feel a little bit dull now, or I could go with the skew. I think what I'm going to try is I'm going to go ahead and touch this up just real fast. I'm going to try a few more passes with this. If it doesn't clean up, then we're going to jump over and use our skew. So I'll be right back. Sharpening the tool did help, but it feels like the bevel is about shot again. This stuff is really tough on tools, but I was really nervous as I got down toward the end, but I'm happy with how it turned out. I'm going to stop here. I'm not going to take it any farther. We're going to go ahead now and get a little sandpaper on this, and I think we're going to end up with a beautiful looking blank. Just want to let you guys know I'm going to go ahead and start with 220 grit as opposed to my usual 150, and the reason why is the sandpaper will really eat away at this. Even though I've got a little roughness here and there, I don't have a lot of tool marks in it, and I think the 200 will be a great spot to start. If I need to, I can always go to a heavier grit, but I don't want to chew too much of this up with the paper. Sanded this blank down to 400. I'm going to clean it with a little denatured alcohol. We're going to go back and forth first to get anything that might be in the grain, and then we'll flip the lathe on real quick. See, that's what we're pulling out of the grain. Flip the rag over, and we'll just sort of buff a little bit. Few fuzzies on there. There's a lot of grain in this wood, so it kind of caught some of the paper towel and pulled some of the little fuzzy pieces off. You want to get those off with the towel and not your finger. I'd never want to touch this once I finish using the denatured alcohol, because I don't want to put any oils from my hand on there. And this is ready for CA glue. I'm going to let it dry and just fully dry for a couple of seconds, and then we'll come back and get the CA on it. Going to put the first coat of CA on, and we'll let you see what it looks like as the blank pops. Take a look at that. It gets a deep color. I really wish you were able to get a better view of this blank, because it looks so dark in the video, but there are so many beautiful color variations. The warm browns, you got dark browns, light browns. It's absolutely gorgeous in person. I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera off. We're going to put about 4 more coats of thin, a couple of coats of medium, and then we'll come back and take a look at it and make sure that all of the deep grain marks have been filled. I got 5 coats of thin, 3 coats of medium. It looks a little hazy right now. I did shoot it, the very last coat, with a little bit of activator, just to make sure everything was good and dry before I hit it with these micro mesh pads. But I've got good coverage, and as I watch the light, the reflection of the light, and spin the blank, I'm not seeing any divots, any grain divots. So when you see that, you know you've got good coverage of your blank. Now I'm ready to go ahead and run through the micro mesh pads and polish this up a little bit. Well, I neglected to turn the camera on for the micro mesh routine, but you've seen it 100 times. I use my worn pads and just run through all 6 of them. I wet each pad before micro meshing, and I wipe the slurry off afterwards. I get asked why I do that, And the reasoning is, if you run a pad on here, or even if it was a piece of sandpaper, it's going to leave grit. So by wiping that off between the pads, you're not going to have any of that grit get caught up in the next lowest pad and maybe cause a scratch in your blank. The blank looks beautiful. I'm going to go ahead now and get my buffing wheel on the lathe, and we're going to buff this up. And I don't know how I can get any shinier, but I guarantee you this thing is just going to glow. It's going to be gorgeous. Somebody told me that if I were to leave my non-stick bushings on here for buffing this on the buffing wheel, that my wheel wouldn't get that black tint to it. That black tint is the rouge buffing the aluminum bushings, and it just basically, it just makes the wheel look dirty. I don't know that it hurts anything. I don't know that it puts any dirt back onto your blank, but it's just a sight thing, and it's really a good idea, but I just haven't started doing that yet, and I may at some point add that to my regiment of what I do when I buff a blank. Just take a look at that. It's like a mirror reflecting back at you. And what really stinks is you cannot see the grain in the picture. This is absolutely stunning in person. I just can't get over how this blank turned out, how rich this blank looks. And I just hate that you can't see it. I keep saying that it's much more beautiful in person, and it really is. I'm looking at it through the lens of the camera, and you guys are just getting robbed of a gorgeous view. Because there you go, that's maybe a little better, but you can see the gradation in color. Dark browns, chocolate browns, it's gorgeous. I've got a Gatsby kit here. This is a chrome and gunmetal kit. I'm going to go ahead and insert the front nib, or the front nib threaded section. This is what the nib will thread onto. There we go. Press that in. I'll bring it up for you to take a look. And just look at that. What a beautiful fit. Let's go ahead now, and we've got the clip assembly, and there really is nothing we want to hide. I want to show every aspect of this pin. I think we'll put it in right here. And we'll just lightly press that in. Once again, I'll bring it up for you to take a look at the back half of the pin. Another gorgeous fit. Couldn't be happier. We're going to go ahead and thread the nib on the front of the pin. Tighten it down. We have let me get a hold of this, a rubber cap on our ink refill. We'll remove that. This particular spring has, I'm going to bring this up, I talk about this a lot. If you look at the spring, it looks like this side is fatter than this side, a bigger loop. I always like to put the smaller loop on the refill and let this part press against the front of the nib. We'll slide that into the pin. Transmission threads in from the back. Get that nice and tight. I'll go ahead and pop the cap on. Then we'll bring it up and we'll test the action. Whoops, I forgot it twists from the back, not the front. There we go. I've got my transmission loose. Make sure we get that as tight as we can. There we go. Well, I tell you what, this transmission's a little bit difficult on this one. I may need to work it a little bit. There we go. It's getting better. I think it's just going to need to be worked a little bit to get the action on it to work a little smoother. It's working much better now. Just stuck a little bit in the beginning. Very happy with that pin. I think this gunmetal and gold is really going to accent that nicely. Let me retract the ink there. I don't want to write all over my finger. What a beautiful pen. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop today. I had an incredible time turning this pen. I'm absolutely in love with the colors. It's just gorgeous. I think the kit really sets it off. I worked it a little bit. I keep wanting to twist the nib. I've worked it a little bit, and I've got the action working really well on the pen now, so I'm happy with that. I think it was just a little tight, but everything looks good. Had a great time turning it. This was a real hold your breath blank, because I've turned a black palm before. I've turned a white palm as well as a red palm, and they can really, one wrong move and these blanks will just splinter into 1,000 pieces. So if you're going to turn palm, any kind of palm, just make sure that tool is sharp. I sharpened mine again in the middle of turning. Keep feeling the bevel and make sure that you're not dulling it out, because I don't know if the tubes in this thing, like I said, it's like a bunch of straws, if they suck up minerals from the ground or dirt or whatever, but it dulls the tool fast. So just take your time, start from the middle, work out, and I think you'll have excellent results with palm. It's a gorgeous wood. Thanks a lot for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon. Have a great evening, everybody.